In my last video, it was brought to my attention that I wasn't clear on my stance on customer tips. I want to thank Acacia for bringing this to my attention and for suggesting the topic of today's video. The great tip debate. Should customers tip based on the amount of time the driver is going to spend on the order, or should they tip a percentage of their total order amount? What's going on, everybody? My name is Zach. I hope you are doing well. Before we get into the video, if you are new here, please do consider pressing that like and subscribe button. If you are kind enough to subscribe, let me know in the comments section below. Tell me your name and the market you drive in, and I'll be sure to thank you at the end of my next ride-along video. So, should customers tip based off of time or a percentage of their total order amount? In this video, I'm going to discuss the pros and cons of both scenarios. As it is, DoorDash uses a percentage of the total order value to suggest a fair tip. But is it actually beneficial to the driver? I do want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I just ask that you guys keep it respectful, as there will be differing opinions. For this video, we're going to assume base pay is $2.50 everywhere and that hidden tips aren't a thing. Let's assume that the customer tips us $1 for every 2 minutes of our time, and let's assume that that order is going to take us 20 minutes. We'll have made $10 in tips in 20 minutes. I think that that's fair. Now let's say that that order was a Big Mac meal for $6, but instead the customer opts to tip by a percentage. Let's say that they tipped between 10 and 20%. For a $6 order, our tip would be between 60 cents and $1.20. That's for the same 20 minutes of our time. When you factor in the $2.50 base pay, that means that at best, we're going to make $3.70 on that order. Now let's assume that the customer is buying dinner for his family at the steakhouse across the street from McDonald's. The customer decides to splurge on steak, shrimp, corn on the cob, fucking Caesar salad. Props to you if you know the reference. But back to the scenario. Our time and mileage would be the same as the McDonald's order. However, this time, the meal comes to $100. If the customer is tipping based on time, we would still get a tip of $10. Add in the $2.50 base pay, and we now have $12.50. But if the customer is tipping based on a percentage, and remember, we're going 10 to 20% for this example, you would receive a $10 to $20 tip. That would make the minimum order value $12.50, and the maximum order value $22.50. Now, in this specific scenario, it would make sense to be tipped by a percentage. But I want you to think about this. When was the last time you saw a non-grocery order where the customer spent that much? I understand it happens, but it is rare. Keep that in mind if you ever go for Top Dasher. Now here is where I'm going to interject some of my personal opinions. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with me. It takes me no additional time to carry 2 bags of food as opposed to 1. Having said that, I do find it extremely disrespectful for the customer to leave a very low, or worse yet, no tip at all. So there is a balance there. Now, if a customer knows that we have to jump from city to city to get their order picked up and delivered, it would seem to me as though they should have the decency to tip us appropriately. It's worth mentioning that DoorDash does not suggest a higher tip amount if you're traveling a further distance. This is why we see insultingly low orders going 10, 20, or more miles. A vast majority of the time that a customer is ordering from a restaurant outside of their town, they're aware that that driver is going to spend a substantial amount of time on their order. So in those cases, I would almost always rather be tipped based on the time I spent on the order rather than a percentage of their total. However, it's not always a perfect tipping method. Take, for example, Taco Hell. I have 3 of them in my market, but only one of them is on the various delivery services. So when the customer orders a cheesy gordita crunch, to me, it would seem reasonable that they would assume the order is being picked up close to their house. But it's not. I have to drive to the booming metropolis of Ferndale to pick up that order. Then I have to bring it back to civilization. I just can't bring myself to be mad at that customer for not tipping appropriately. It's a fair assumption that I'd be picking up at the Taco Bell closest to them. How could they possibly know about something so stupid? They think we're picking up from the Taco Bell 2 miles down the road from them, not an 18-mile round-trip drive. By the time we've driven to Taco Bell, picked up their order, and returned to civilization, the Taco Bell will have given itself the runs, rendering itself ineffective to the customer. In this case, tipping based on time would bite us in the ass faster than the Taco Bell would. The massive failure in logistics is not the customer's problem, it's the company's problem. Having said that, if they're ordering from a small mom and pop place 15 miles away from them, that is their problem. The truth is, we as drivers have double standards. We want it both ways, and that's okay. As independent contractors who do not make an hourly rate, we can and should be extremely selective with the orders we choose to accept. Cherry picking is not a dirty word. It is a smart financial decision. The way I see it, tipping based off of time would usually be the most beneficial, with a handful of exceptions. Now let's talk about a solution to this. We've all gotten those warnings from DoorDash and Uber Eats that we're not moving towards the restaurant or that our acceptance rate is very low. Since DoorDash and Uber Eats have no problem being passive aggressive with us, why can't they strongly encourage the customers to tip appropriately on the checkout screen? Rather than defaulting to a percentage on the checkout screen, maybe the app should show the customer a time breakdown, the estimated amount of time that the restaurant will spend making the order, and the estimated amount of time that the driver will spend delivering the order. This could be wildly beneficial to the drivers whose customers might be miles away from the restaurant. It could cause customers to rethink the amount of money that they're tipping. I do realize that that's not realistic. The delivery services do almost nothing to benefit the drivers. That is why it's okay that we as drivers have double standards. It's okay to want it both ways. It's basic economics, supply and demand. If demand is high, I'm not going to take a low-paying order. I'm going to wait until I get an order that's far more lucrative to me. The way you approach this can and probably should be analyzed from order to order. This is the beauty of not being an employee. For example, let's say that I get an order for a fancy sushi place that's known to be slow. Let's say it's a Grubhub order for $22 going 3 miles. I can safely assume that they tipped a percentage of their order value. In this case, I would consider doing that order. However, I wouldn't want to do that order with a tip based on the amount of time the customer presumes that I'm going to spend on that order. What the customer isn't aware of is the amount of time that I'm going to have to wait for that order to be ready. To give you a contrasting example, there's only one Chipotle in my market. It's here in Bellingham. If somebody one town north in Ferndale wants Chipotle, I'm almost always going to want to be compensated based on the time I spend on that order, not a percentage of the order value. So again, personally, if I had to choose one, normally I would want to be compensated based on the amount of time I spend on the order, not the percentage. Having said that, there are always exceptions. The true moral of the story comes back to us making wise financial decisions based on what's going on in our market at the time. Unfortunately, we have no control over what the apps present to the customers and what the customers choose to do on the checkout screen. What we do have control over is pressing the like button and making wise financial decisions on the orders we choose to accept. If you had to choose being tipped based on the amount of time you spend on the order or a percentage of the order, what would you choose? Let me know in the comment section below. And again, there's going to be differing opinions, so please do be kind to each other. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video and for taking time out of your day to watch one of my videos. If you haven't done so yet, please do consider pressing that like and subscribe button. If you are kind enough to subscribe, let me know in the comment section below. Tell me your name and the market you drive in, and I'll be sure to thank you at the end of my next ride-along video. My name is Zach. Take care.